Hey everyone. Okay, so this episode introduces us to Heisuke Mashimo, a down-on-his-luck sniper who, yes, if you couldn't piece together from the intro, is the final member of the Sakamoto crew, although despite what the ending of this episode would have you believe, as a manga reader I can tell you guys this, he doesn't officially join just yet until much later. Like, I think it isn't until, like, the end of this core that he's going to become, like, an official member of the crew. And honestly, although Shin is my personal favorite character in the series, Heisuke is a very close second, and that's mostly because it's not only because of what we learn about him through the episode, but also because out of all the cast, he does feel like the one who fits the most typical shonen protagonist archetype of being this oblivious weirdo who you can tell his heart is in the right place and that he's a genuinely nice guy, but even with the intent to kill Taro, he's only doing it because he's down on his luck and needs to survive. So it's like he's in a way he's very relatable character because of his situation. And okay, I gotta talk about that. I gotta do on a hand here because I gotta talk about this. I want to talk about the English dub voice actor that the voice actor that they got to voice Heisuke in the dub, because if you guys don't know, the one playing Heisuke is Zolo Mariduena. And for those who may not recognize the name or know who he is as an actor, this is the guy who played Jaime Reyes in the Blue Beetle movie. That came out 2 years ago. And this is one of those castings that really makes me say I gotta give it to the casting director of the English casting director of this series. Sakamoto's days is shaping up to have one of the most eclectic English dubs in the history of anime dubs. Like I learned just yesterday that the guy they got playing X is actually a TikTok influencer, so is a TikToker, I guess. So yeah, definitely like this dub is definitely has like an out of the choices they're making with the dub are the most out of the box castings all around, which I kind of love, to be honest. Like not all of them hit, but when they do hit, damn do they hit. And Zolo is actually doing a pretty good job with Heisuke, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, with that said though, let's get back to talking about Heisuke himself, because there's a very interesting dichotomy with his character, which is, as it's revealed throughout the episode, despite his bumbling personality, he's a very skilled sniper. The downside is that, as we learned from his backstory, that's the only thing he was good at in this world. And he was good at, and in this world, there's sort of an expectation as sort of an expectation of sorts that's thrust upon you in this world, that in order to become an assassin, you need to have more than one skill set. And I really do like how, through Heisuke's perspective and this backstory, that we are seeing kind of the flawed logic of the JAA here, which is that while I do to a degree understand the idea of having a diversified skill set to become an assassin, the degree of the JAA's expectations in regards to these rules do expose a very interesting underlying problem in how they perceive the caliber of an assassin, as it runs the risk of ostracizing those with genuine talent that could be cultivated into something powerful. Like Heisuke may have only been good as a sniper, but you could have cultivated that into something powerful. But because of the rules, laws, how things are structured within the JAA's whole ideological worldview, it's like, yeah, he's just a loser. He's just a loser. He can only do one thing. Let's ditch him. Like it's this ideology that really forced Heisuke to feel like he had no other choice but to prove himself by killing Taro, because there was no other option for him. It was either that or be blacklisted forever. And one thing I do like about this, one thing I do like in showing this backstory as well, is that it's also what I feel brings out the best of Taro as a main character as well, because even if Taro has sworn off a life of killing, he still very much believes in the opposite of the JAA, which is cultivating talent and recognizing it. And I like how the Airsoft tournament provided the perfect venue to not only showcase the full extent of Heisuke's abilities, but for Taro, it also allowed him to kind of recognize the intricacies of Heisuke's technique that made him unique as a sniper. It's because of Taro that Heisuke feels that Heisuke feels like he can actually be part of something now, or just generally be accepted. Like, that's the thing I think that's the one thing Heisuke wanted more than anything else, is just to be accepted just for skills to be accepted, to be acknowledged, and they're now being acknowledged by Taro. And honestly, the first chunk of this episode was really funny, just through Taro and Shin's interactions with Heisuke, and it's kind of funny how you see Shin and Taro feeling they have to carefully tiptoe around Heisuke, only to keep remembering, oh yeah, he's an oblivious fool, only for Shin to actually let it slip by accident, but by basically name-dropping Taro. Like, every moment of this sort of back and forth has both perfect tension, but perfect comedic timing, and I kind of love it even more here. Now, if I did have one problem with this episode, I'd say there are moments that could have been better adapted, which is to say, when it comes to what was adapted in this chapter, like this chapter adapted chapter 17 and 18, which is the entirety of the whole of Heisuke's like arc in this series, like Heisuke's introduction arc. And as far as the chapters that were adapted in this episode, Suzuki, like, with these chapters, Suzuki really mastered what I can only describe as perspective depth. The idea of really capturing the perspective of what it's like to look through a sniper scope with Heisuke. And while the anime does do pretty well at capturing certain moments like that really well, the best ones being when Heisuke socked Taro's hand at point blank range, and when Taro destroyed Heisuke's rifle with a rock. Like, those are the best moments that captured this just as well as the manga did. But then there are also a few moments that feel they stopped short of capturing the field of view. One of my favorite moments from the manga is that over-the-shoulder view of Heisuke pointing his rifle in between Taro and Shin. And in the manga, that was like the first real demonstration that although Heisuke might be a goober, he is dangerously skilled. But in the anime, it feels like that moment was kind of underplayed a bit. And just so everyone understands, the criticism I have is not with the animation, because the animation in this episode was great. It's the scene composition that I have more of a problem with when it comes to this episode. Like, the scene composition is the one thing about this episode that has me saying that this could have been better, or this could have been better. Like certain moments and scenes just feel like they weren't as well adapted as. They weren't as well adapted as they could have been, at least compared to the manga. Like, the manga, again, Suzuki really gave a lot of perspective depth with a lot of the scenes that were adapted into this episode, and but the perspective depth, there's a little bit of lost perspective depth with this episode, honestly, in my opinion. But as a whole, though, guys, I still did really like this episode. It's a very solid episode, and again, I think this is probably the best kind of the best character introduction in a shonen anime I've seen in a long while, frankly. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Blue Sky, NOS, Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Runway signing off. Later, everyone.